Hello and welcome back to All Things Microsoft 365 Compliance. And today, this session, we're kicking off with a brand new series called Compliance Spotlight. And we're going to be taking a look at all the roles and features from the roadmap items. But today we've got a bit of a special one for you, and it's around Ignite22. And of course, I'm joined by Nikki. Hi, Nikki.
Hi, thank you very much. So I'm Nikki Chappell. I'm the Principal Cloud Architect at Cloudway and a Microsoft MVP. And I love everything to do with Microsoft 365 governance and compliance. And of course, Ignite had so many amazing new features and functionality that, it was just like days worth of information for us to digest. And today we're really pleased to have a special guest on our show. So we've got Graham Hoskins, who's also just as passionate as we are about compliance. Welcome, Graham.
Thank you very much, Nikki and Ryan. So I'm Graham Hosking. I now work for a Microsoft partner, but also ex-Microsoft for 6 years. I was there, covering everything from voice, productivity, Teams, then security and compliance. But compliance has always been sort of the through line through all of those kind of technical roles I've had. So lovely to be here today. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks for joining us. So lots going on at Ignite this year when it comes to compliance. There's been a lot of announcements, and for the three of us, we've kind of come up with our top 6, items that have come out. So mine, first and foremost, I think has got to be around the MIP announcements around the PDF, that being natively put into the built-in client. I think that's such an advancement for customers now. That was always a frequently asked question, and I'm sure the pair of you and anybody else listening to this who or even watching this who works in compliance, we all dreaded that question coming down the line, right?
Well, I think it's been a pertinent issue anyway with it's about a year now, right? That AIP, so Azure Information Protection Scanner, and the unified labeling client has been put into maintenance mode. Which basically means that it's still supported, they're still releasing extra versions of that, but it meant that there was no new features coming. And basically Microsoft are waiting for Ignite for the big reveal, this is what's coming. And that is what you're right, Ryan, is that native support for third-party applications, being able to understand that data and also classify that data as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Nikki, anything?
Yeah, and I think it just makes the whole process simpler as well. You don't have to worry about other add-ins and the potential lag that then causes and everything. Having it natively built in, it means that it's not only just available from Windows, you've got access from the Macs and the mobile as well. It just makes things simpler. And I also must say, I love the color coding capability that's now coming in, because I think that was one of the key things. You've got a list of names, but people understand what red, amber, green is. Red is danger, beware, sort of thing. So being able to add just that little bit, it might sound a little simple, but actually from an end user viewpoint, that makes their life that little bit easier.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. And the customizations as well. So people are used to using the customizations within the add-in, like being able to have a pop-up for Outlook saying, "Are you sure you want to send this?" and have a bit more control about what happens from an end user point of view. So I think you're right. I think overall, it will be better for the end user and also better for IT as well. So they're not having to manage the 365 apps, and we'll talk about the names a little bit later, but also the updates for any plugins, right? People don't realize you have to maintain all of those different versions then going forward. So just easier for everybody, I think, personally.
Yeah, I agree. And I caught a glimpse of, I think, the collective workbook. What do they call it? Where everything's in there.
The Book of News.
The Book of News. I caught a glimpse in there of when you actually select the labels now, you get like little icons, like a little shield and so on and so forth. I thought that was a good introduction as well, because that can give you some indication of what labels are actually encrypted without having to basically expand the label. So for me, from a user training process, I think Microsoft have made it a lot easier now for people like us and risk and compliance teams to actually put together proper training and say, if you see this icon, you know that item is going to be encrypted.
Yeah, I think it does make it a lot easier, because we talk about implementing this stuff from a techie point of view, right? But it's also goes back to that end user point, is they have to be trained as well. So if you're you're publishing all these different labels and they do different things, and especially then collaboration, and they've made collaboration easier as well, right? Is now we can co-author encrypted files, which is brilliant, especially like on a mobile device. It's starting to have a bit more of a should we say, a secure story around it. Yes, we want to protect the data, but we also want to be productive with that data as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think I agree.
Yeah, and that is so important. It's that balancing that need between productivity and that security. And I always say to clients, you know, it's that triangle. We've got to look at protecting your most important assets. And there may be some, you know, productivity may be a little bit harder when you're dealing with highly sensitive data, but don't put those same rules and enforce them on everybody. So it's kind of really, if you don't need high levels of security on that particular data, don't put it on there, don't enforce it.
Yeah, exactly. Sticking with the theme of information protection, I also saw that the Azure Information Protection Scanner is now available in the Purview Compliance Portal. And I think that, yeah, exactly, right? Everybody breathes a sigh of relief from that, don't they? And it's like, I love the fact that it's there, and it's nice to have it all in one place. But I'm kind of thinking, right now as it is and what it gives you, is it enough?
I think it's getting there. I don't think it's enough yet. I think when AIP Scanner came out, and then all of the reports, all of the scanning, all the configuration that was in the Azure portal was brilliant, especially around log analytics, because a lot of my customers come to me and say, well, we want to understand what we have on premises today through all of our multiple file servers. And then they also want to understand, like, who's the data owner of that? Who's the last modified? What did it contain? And it made it super easy with log analytics to be able to do that. And integration into Power BI, and then you can build all these weird and wonderful reports for that customer, right? I think the move to put everything in one central place makes sense, especially from a data map point of view. So you're saying, well, this is my estate. I've got data down here from a hybrid perspective that sits on premises. I've got data up here within the 365 ecosystem, and you get a holistic view of it. The issue came, I think, where they deprecated log analytics and then said, oh, this is prior to Ignite. Go over here, you've got Activity Explorer to see that type of information. And you're like, well, it's not the same. No. Like, there's such a big gap. And I think with the announcements from Ignite now saying that you'll be able to see the Content Explorer and the Activity Explorer together is great. But it would still be nice to be able to see the same reports that we had in log analytics from my point of view.
Yeah, I think it's important to be able to somehow have APIs where you can take it out even to log analytics or any other, you might want Power BI or whatever tool that you're using, to be able to kind of slice it and dice it the way you want to have it, rather than being forced to just to look into the admin center. And the other question we often get asked is, I don't want to give out those admin roles to kind of the business users or the data owners to then go and actually have a look and make the rules around it. So being able to extract that data out and have it in your own format does make it easier.
Be nice. You can't get around it. You can use Power BI today to interrogate like the 365 audit log. It's just, yeah, that might get around the permissions thing. I think you're right, Nikki. But yeah, there's a step forward, I guess. That's the main thing about it. So it's still super cool to have all of that information up there.
Yeah, I like I said, I like the fact that it's there, but I still think deep down there's a little bit still missing when it comes to what Activity Explorer can give you and that Content Explorer can give you regarding AIP Scanner or MIP Scanner, if they ever rename it to that.
They might,
yeah, Purview Scanner perhaps. They like to change names, don't they, Microsoft?
Well, anything that rhymes with Purview, I guess. Purview, Prever.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I'll give you both the opportunity to share a couple of your takeaways from or favorite items from Ignite22.
Yeah, I guess just to finish off the information protection bit is starting this December, just 2 months ago till Christmas, is Microsoft will start automatically removing the need for that AIP add-in, and then not force customers, but start to move them across to use the built-in client. So if you want to keep that add-in for regulatory reasons, then you can opt out of that process if you want to.
Yeah.
But that would just be my other little nugget for those who aren't aware.
Yeah, no, I think that's very important, because I think from my experience with the built-in client over the last 12 months, but had a little bits added to it here and there. Not a lot of customers are aware that they were aware that at that point of delivery over the last 12 months, the built-in client really didn't meet their needs. They may have to right-click and protect in that perspective, or it didn't have the coloring in to identify the labels and stuff. So it's a very good point, actually, Graham, the fact that people do need to be aware that this will be phased out and customers will be urged, let's say, to move over onto the built-in client. So, and mainly, I'm sure the three of us, we deal with regulated companies, and they will have a requirement to have that locally for whatever reason, whether it just be encrypting files directly or something else. That's good to know you have the opt-out option, but it's also good to know that there will be a sunset date on this in the future.
And there's a really good blog about this on the Security, Compliance and Identity site that talks about that when it's being, I think it was something like version 22.11, something like that, where by default they're going to remove it. So if you want to keep it, you've got to kind of opt in and do some action. But there's a nice summary of saying, do I really need to keep it? There's a question that you can go through to say, I'm using it now, do I still need to keep it? So we'll post that link in this the blog post. So if you are in that situation, you are using the add-in at the moment, take a look at that and say, do I really still need to use it? Can I make my life simpler? Can I work with the built-in client?
Yeah. Just for everybody else's sake, I will put the links to some of the Ignite announcements that we've got, and what's it called, the playbook? No, that's Sentinel.
The Book of News.
Book of News, sorry. So I've been working with Sentinel too much recently. Well, the Book of News. I'll post that in the bio of either the podcast or the video. But yeah, let's hear some more. What other good things came out of Ignite?
I think the other stuff really was around the sensitive information types, because there's always been so many built in the platform, which is brilliant when discussing with clients and customers, that the SharePoint platform has indexed into none by default, so you can see that snapshot view of all these different types of data that you hold, mostly classification of diseases, but we won't go down that route. There's some false positives there that need to be rectified. But wow, things that aren't just GDPR specific or PII specific types. Now Microsoft announced there's going to be 42 new sensitive information types around credentials. So now it's looking for like general passwords, which is super cool, or maybe it's looking for AIP keys or secrets that you might hold in Amazon S3. So they're really kind of broadening the horizon, not just from Microsoft and a PII perspective, but just around kind of making sure that all the information you have is secured, and then handing off to things like information protection and retention and all of those kind of automation pieces that come with the 5 features. And the other things that wasn't really announced, it's hidden within the Book of News and the blogs that are connected to that, is looking for things that are like blood test terms or medical names and brands. I thought was pretty cool. And things like, we don't think about it because we're in the UK, but for our global customers, like if you've got data that needs to reside within a specific country, like China, for example, there's now new sensitive information types that looking for China specific information. And one of those was a resident identifiable card number or something like that. Bit like national insurance number, I guess, for the UK. But yeah, they're really like broadening those features out now to be able to do that data collection.
Yeah, I think the credentials one, I know, speaking to my customers, and even when I was at Microsoft, Graham, a lot of people ask for that. Can I protect credentials? Is there anything that you can generate to look for usernames at domains, or even synchronized passwords, and so on and so forth? So I think that's a great introduction into the sensitive information types now, because trying to build them out as a custom sensitive information type, I could never really get them working 100%. But I would hope now the Microsoft bonds, though all sensitive information types need a bit of a tweak, right? The amount of false positive you get back from some of them, like the diseases one or so on and so forth. But I think that one for me, the credential one, definitely stood out the most from the rest of them.
Yeah, exactly. And the models within trainable classifiers, right? So that's a super cool way of using machine learning and predictive coding to understand like what this model looks like and what it might contain. And just looking for things that are resume, which was some of the built-in templates, but now there's new ones like data that may look like HR data or tax specific data, or there's like a bunch now. I can't remember off the top of my head, but that's super cool. Again, built in. New features came a couple of months ago where it's automatically indexing based on indexing the data based on those models as well. So yeah, it's super transparent now. What at a snapshot view, the types of information you have. Either you go the hard route, like you're saying, built in, or using those patterns of data, or using keywords, which is quite specific, or training the system to look for those models of data, like your contracts, for example. Seeding the system with your contracts and saying, this is what my contracts look like. Now look across the whole of SharePoint. If you see anything like that, then it needs to be classified or retained for a period of time is great, but they're doing great work on that.
And I think what's so good about this is that you can see immediately, you can go into your tenant and have a look now. There's nothing that you actually need to configure for a lot of this. It is actually being there. And yes, you do have to, I say, look through some of the noise because there are so many of these sensitive information types because, you know, Microsoft are working across all different industries and across the globe. To have a look through there and find the sensitive information types or the trainable classifiers that you are interested in and have a look at that. And if you've got a particular role and you can actually not only just see where the data is, but you can actually have a look inside of that data to say, is this a true match? So you can start to work on it, get your confidence out, and then you can start using those in other purview things. And that's where I think it becomes really interesting.
Yeah, it's getting really powerful. And I should add to that is only if you have the appropriate rights, right? You don't want everybody looking at the actual content, but you might want people just to see like high level. Oh, we've got like 800 items that contain HR information in a place where it shouldn't be, you know, so it's great to have that granularity as well.
And with that, those particular permissions, even the global admin doesn't have that permission. So it is a particular role type that you have to add into it. And you can kind of put auditing and various things and alerts around it. So if people are using it, but it is a very particular role. But it is a valuable thing. It's a step that can't be missed. You can't just say, oh, I've got all of these matches, let's go ahead and use them. You've got to have that confidence in yourself that it's actually picking up the right information. I mean, I know a few years back, quite a while back, when I was implementing PCI DSS, the credit card compliance, and we were doing scanning for credit cards information because you're not allowed to keep it. And it was picking up things like IBAN numbers. It picks up UK driving licenses because it's using the same algorithm. And it became then quite a bit of a headache and a manual overhead to kind of filter out that noise. So it is worth spending that time doing that detailed investigation up front, doing those tweaking and make sure it's right.
Yeah. You can also put exclusions in there as well, can't you? So when you find, you know, a common one is a VAT number or a business registration number in an email that it brings back. So just for those listening and watching, you know, you can refine these. You can put exclusions in them to make them as accurate as you would like them to be. But it's not an overnight thing. You know, they do take time to refine. But it's all part of the fun, I guess.
Yeah, indeed. And the refinement, I think, is key. That was another like little nugget in the announcements was the booleans within the DLP policies. Did you see that?
Yeah, so, the and ahs for sure.
Yeah, you can have grouping before, which is great, but now you can say actually this type of information, I don't want you to detect that.
Yeah.
So it's a bit more granular. I think it's becoming a bit more granular across the board. So even if you look at the announcements for endpoint DLP, I had customers coming to me for the last couple of years when it came out saying, look, I've got like everybody working from home now, they've got their own printers, their own devices. How can I prevent them from like copying or sharing or printing information? You go, yes, endpoint DLP. And you go, but there's some printers that we do want certain people to be able to print from. And you're like, it's sort of all or nothing. I think, again, with the announcements, Microsoft has gone in the right direction, or stepping in the right direction, where you can have grouping now, so you can have sanctioned printers based on like IP address. It's still not as granular, I think, as it could be, as in those settings are still at the endpoint DLP settings level and not the DLP policies themselves. But I think that was a great announcement, just having that granularity that everyone's been asking for, and they've really delivered on that.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it comes out of the fact that if you are dealing with these sensitive information and sensitivity labels, the documents in the background have a purpose, don't they? So I think that's a great call from Microsoft, because I wonder how many people have actually gone, I need to, I prefer to read this in bed tonight, and print off an actual sensitive, highly classified document, not realizing, and then forever having it in their own home, So again, I think Microsoft they've got a grasp on this, I think. And I think as over the next probably 12, 24 months, more will come out for endpoint DLP, because I agree with you, Graham. It's there, it serves a purpose. But again, I think it still needs some tweaking and some features coming out in comparison to what other third-party solutions give you. But, Microsoft are getting there, so hey ho.
Yeah, definitely. I was speaking to another colleague in a competitor. I won't name who they are, but they were saying, wow, all these different announcements from a security and compliance point of view, they just don't know how they're going to compete. There's so many things that Microsoft product can do now. Why would you go away and have all these different point solutions? Especially if we think about Microsoft Teams and the Loop component. Now, a great way to be able to collaborate all in one place. We're all used to like having a Word document or an Excel document to collaborate on the last so many years, and we can have up to 99 people collaborating on one document at the same time, which is fantastic. But having those Loop components where you can build up a collaborative space, say it's like a grid or something you want to build with somebody else, now you're able to apply classification labels and protection to that content. So you can say, well, only these 5 people, whoever's got access to that Loop component, can actually read the content. So we're protecting that. And eDiscovery as well, right? We were able to use eDiscovery Premium in order to retrieve data from those components as well. Again, I still think there's a little bit of a gap when it comes to a classification point of view from a chat perspective. I'm sure that's going to come in the future. I've had, again, lots of clients come to me and say, I want to be able to classify some chat or a conversation has happened, because now I want to mark that chat as a record because something has changed from that, especially within government. But again, what's your thoughts on that?
You can, sorry, Nick, you can actually apply classification now to a meeting, can't you? And I kind of saw that cover and I thought, oh, that'd be ideal for those who don't really want people communicating in a externally hosted meeting, or you want to keep that content directly within yourself. People can't copy and paste the content out and so on and so forth. What's your thoughts on that?
I was going to say, I think that's really, really valuable, because it's bringing in kind of the features from Purview. It's bringing in those Teams policies, and it provides that granular access. So if you're hosting a secure meeting, you can say, actually, I don't want any guests. I don't want, different features and functionality. You might not want people recording the meeting. You might not want people to share, etc. And then you've got kind of the sensitivity labels on that as well. It's going to be an add-on to it, and there's particular rules. It's coming down from the team organizer. For the organizer of the meeting needs to have that premium license to enforce those rules.
Yeah, and the other thing, I guess, with data loss prevention was the evidence as well from a forensics point of view. I know that the new DLP capabilities really good, especially if you've got information protection add-on, or if you've got E5 compliance, being able to see the contextual evidence and the metadata associated with what was triggered.
Yeah.
So now they announced that there's more information going to be put into that portal. So you're able to see things like sensitive files and an endpoint and what did it contain. So always a credit card number, and it gives you the context about where the credit card number was within that specific content. So just having that timeline of events about the things that are happening, DLP being triggered, and the evidence just makes it easier from a security point of view or a SOC point of view. Yeah. Especially if you're using, I think it's still in preview. I'll check with you, Nikki, in a second. Is DLP within the security portal, the unified security portal? That's been brought up there as well, probably about 6 or 7 months ago. I don't know if you've seen that.
I'm not sure whether it's in preview or not.
Yeah. Okay. I think it might be in private preview at the moment.
I don't think I've seen it.
Okay. So yeah, it's just a different lens. If we think about all the different stakeholders that actually run the Microsoft platform, it isn't just IT, it's got to be security or it's compliance, and they've all got their different lenses. So they're basically bringing in all of that contextual content to the people that have that focus. So from like a DLP perspective, it might be your data loss, your data protection officer that wants to monitor and be alerted to that fact. So they can view in different places. Either it's in the Purview compliance portal or over in the unified security portal now as well.
Is that the new Entra one? I think they're calling it, aren't they?
Entra, yeah, is an amalgamation, a new branding of identity and everything else. Yeah.
Okay. Sticking with the whole forensic and investigation piece, then historical versions.
Yeah.
I think that is a massive leap forward for Microsoft, and I don't think there's any products out there, third-party products, that give you that today.
Well, there technically is, but you have to you have to extract the data from Teams in order to get it. So there are solutions out there, and they used to do it in a way of hooking into Exchange and getting the chat information out and the attachments. But now they're using the new Teams export APIs. I say new; they've probably been out for about a year or two now.
Yeah.
And then being able to get all of the context around it. So if there's any pictures or GIFs or likes, they have all of that information as well through those APIs. And the announcement, although it wasn't new to Ignite, it was announced a couple of months ago, is that historical versions now gives you that native capability within eDiscovery. You have to go and turn it on, by the way. So you have to say, these are the sites that I want historical versions to be on for.
Yeah.
But then all that's doing is basically capturing all the different versions. So if you're running an eDiscovery case, you're bringing back all the versions that you want that you can still do anyway, but you can say, I just want the version of the file that was shared within that chat. And then layered on top of that, they're using things like retention labels. So you can apply tags to attachments as well through that chat. So like I say, if you want to make sure that that item, that attachment is now a record and is immutable, you can also do that from a records management point of view. Super cool stuff.
Yeah, I really like that. What do you think, Nikki?
I think it's really good feature, but I think with so much of this, it takes time, doesn't it, to get your head around these things. So I think what people really need to do is kind of go away and look at what is the key thing, what is the most important thing that would add the most value to their organization. Go away, try it out, read all about it. Some of the stuff, unfortunately, isn't quite out there yet. So they've announced stuff and it's saying it's coming soon. So if you go and look in the portals and it's not there yet, look out in the message center, follow all the blog posts to see when it's coming out, and plan your roadmap for 2023. How are you going to improve your compliance posture?
Right, great. So Graham, thank you very much. This will be one episode of 2. So we'll be back in probably a couple of weeks with another episode. But thank you for today. It's been great.
Thank you.
We'll continue it over in the next one. See you soon.
See you again soon. Bye now.
See you later.
Bye.